So I'm here as the director of the Institute of Heritage Science that is involved in this bilateral project. But I would like to speak not as a director of the Institute, but rather as a coordinator of one of the platform of research infrastructure that is one of the most important endeavor that Italy and CNR is bringing forward since almost 10 years. This big endeavor is the idea to build in Europe, also with the value out of Europe, a research infrastructure for researchers in the field of heritage in a very wide sense. So natural, material, unmaterial cultural heritage. And what is an infrastructure? Just to tell you that the first infrastructure in Europe was the CERN that was built just after the war. And here I recall the words by David. So it is something that is related to cooperation, that is related to science, that is related to peace. So to have a place where the researcher can go and do science at a very high level, with a better opportunity and with a better possibility. So we are building a super CERN dedicated to research in heritage science. That is a collection, is a cross-disciplinary collection of different advanced tools together with competencies to serve the field and the research area for doing innovation. And we have 4 types of platforms that are intended to help and to bring the facilities and the tools to researchers and pupils in the field. One is the ArchLab. And ArchLab is the idea to go inside in archives around Europe. The archive of the Kikirpa, the National Gallery Museum, the Louvre, just to mention a few, where we as a researcher can see, can study, can discuss with the expert about physical objects, about report, about technical image, about sample. The second platform is FixLab, is a collection or a network of very large laboratories for advanced measurement. Some similar to those that was mentioned by David, so DNA measurement, a measurement for datation, synchrotron radiation for mapping. And to mention a few that are inside this network, there is the Hungarian neutron facility, there is the PIXE facility under the basement of the Louvre, that is the Grand Soleil synchrotron in France. And then we have a third platform that is a mobile platform. This was, let's say, invented in Italy. It is the result of our genius loci, because it's merging the advancement of technology that we have in Italy and also with the reality that we have in Italy, where the heritage is very spread on the territory, and we do not have high concentration of heritage in big museums as it is in France or in other countries. So in this case, the country Italy has put effort not in having a big laboratory in one museum, but rather to build a mobile laboratory to serve the country as a whole. Then we have a 4th platform that is not yet active, and I will speak that at the end of my presentation. So at the CNR, we are coordinating the mobile platform that started almost 20 years ago as a nucleus of idea, also supported by CNR with a research project, and now is a big, important reality. It is made of several laboratories around Europe. And so this is the idea of cooperation, we are bringing together in a very high level of interaction different laboratories and different experts around Europe that are working together and are combining a very special laboratory that is serving a specific type of questions that are posed to the infrastructure by researchers in Europe and beyond Europe. So just some examples, because here we are trying to give another dimension to the digitalization. So we have not only the 3D model of an object, but we are adding another dimension that is related to the materiality. So these equipment are bringing material science to heritage. And so it is nice to see how material science can bring information on immaterial value of an object. This typically in painting came out with a very strong effect during restoration. It's typically during restoration that seeing an object, we understand how much the material and the materiality is important for its own understanding and future preservation. Some case, one is about Egyptian blue. Egyptian blue is a very fascinating pigment, was the first one invented by humans, and is also very fascinating from a material science point of view, because behind, and not only for the very powerful and very nice color, it is also because it has a very peculiar property. It's emitting a strong fluorescence in the near infrared. That means that when we excite the object, the Egyptian blue, with one photon in the visible, we receive another photon in the near infrared that are not visible by naked eye, but are visible by detector and machine, and also by a simple adapted camera. And so after a strong study of the phenomenon, trying to understand why, where, and because this strong fluorescence, we are now able, in a very conscious way and very robust way, to use this emission to identify Egyptian blue also in very small traces in objects around Europe. And the first example was at the British Museum for these Lebanon wall painting fragments. Some examples are here reported for this sarcophagus, and as you can see, nothing is visible by naked eye, but simply by recording fluorescence in the near infrared, it is possible to see traces of the decoration. The idea to study ancient polychromy, traces of ancient polychromy, to reconstruct it, and then to bring also a new storytelling on how the sculptors would have been in the past, is one of the topics of our institute, working not only with Egyptian blue, but with a number of other pigments that can be discovered by traces and not visible through naked eye, but visible through special detectors. I also like to mention the fact that after this study on the Egyptian blue properties that are absolutely exceptional from a physical point of view, a number of research in other fields came out. And now this material, after have been so important in the Egyptian population and Egyptian culture, is now applied for the green transition. So this is a very nice example of spillover of research between the field of heritage science and other fields of research, also very important as that of the green transition. Case number 2 is about reading something that is not readable, and the Herculaneum papyri. The papyri are coming to us thanks or due to the eruption of the Vesuvio. And this eruption was involving also the famous and the important library at that time in Ercolano, the library that now called Villa dei Papiri. And we have now these papyri in a roll at this state of preservation. So they are safe and they are the unique example of original writing of early Greek philosophy, but almost unreadable, unfortunately. So this is a very challenging project for a scientist dealing with cultural heritage, and the number of colleagues started studying these rolled papyri in this carbonized condition. And some example proof of concept came out with very important publication. This is a Nature Communication using X-ray phase contrast tomography. And this example this experiment were conducted again at large scale facilities. So at infrastructure, those that I told you are fixed, very large laboratories. But nevertheless, it is, first of all, the results are exciting because as you can see here, it is possible to see through the layer of the papyri. But as a matter of fact, as information, the information for the papyrologists are unfortunately rather poor because only a few letters can be written in this extraordinarily complex system from a material point of view. And for this reason, we decided to be focused on another part of the collection of the papyri, Ercolano's papyri, these are those that were mechanically unrolled in the past. At the end of the 19th century, Piaggio, that was one of the conservators at the Officina dei Papiri, invented this very fancy machine to mechanically unroll the papyri, something that would have been never possible today, but that was possible in the past. So as a result, we have now thousands and thousands of fragments, as you can see here, that are the results of this mechanical process. So are open, but still are unreadable, as you can see here. So to read this manuscript, to read this papyri that is the early Greek written philosophy, so of an enormous importance, we got an ERC project between University of Pisa and CNR. That is a really interdisciplinary project because it's between the philology and the papyrology and science, advanced science. And so here is the image of what you can see by naked eyes. But just starting using special light as an infrared light, it is possible finally to see the word, to see the letters. And if we increase with the technology and inside not using a simple camera, but using an hyperspectral system, it is possible to increase of about 20% the reading content. That is an enormous amount for who is editing this papyri. And this is possible also applying statistics and the computer science technology on this new image. After using the hyperspectral imaging in the SWIR region, that was possible through the cooperation between CNRS and CNR through the MOLAT, we also applied another method that is in place in our institute, that is high resolution X-ray fluorescence mapping. That is typically allowing to detect the element with a high atomic number in the periodic table. So nothing really related to papyri, where the ink is based on carbon and the papyri is based on carbon and is also carbonized. But nevertheless, we tried to see if would have been some traces of element, and this equipment is extraordinarily high efficient. So it has an efficiency in a portable version similar to that can be available at the synchrotron radiation. So it's a super equipment for heritage application. And was possible to see traces of lead. Here are some image. I'm not allowed to show you the entire image and the stitching of the different mapping because we are submitting a paper, but just mentioning to you that we were able to see for the first time the line related to the organization of the writing. So the line that the writer was using to organize the page of the papyrus. And here you can see the surface, the structure of these fragments that are extremely three-dimensional. For this reason, we are now applying photogrammetry, and we would like to have three-dimensional model of the fragments, because this can inform also on the overlapping of different layers coming from different volumes. And as a dream, I have also the idea to bring together with this scientific and the papyrological study the part that is related to storytelling, because the objects are completely silent for the public. It's impossible to understand the value. And so I would like in the future to have also a project of valorization of what is written there and how communicated to the public. The third case is about another type of codex of a completely different culture, is about codex, 16 codex of the Mesoamerican culture, 16 codex that are the only existing in the world, and all of them are in Europe. So this is strange enough, but not strange if we recall the history of the Spanish conquistador of the Mesoamerican people. And what we can imagine would have been an enormous corpus of codices was completely destroyed. I typically like to use the Diego Rivera mural painting that is depicting and telling to us what and how all these books were burned. The 16 existing and surviving are those that were sent as a naive gift to the kings and queens in Europe, just to demonstrate them how naive and how brutal and undeveloped was the culture in the Mesoamerican countries. So this book, these codex are in Europe, and they were never studied before for the value, and no one was thinking to have a sampling of these only 16 existing codex, especially being in Europe. And so this is one of the emblema of how MOLAB is important for the field. And so for this reason, we started a project. It is a very interdisciplinary project again. And we put together a team of experts in Mesoamerican culture, of experts of codex, experts of science and diagnostic methods. And we studied almost all of them that are mainly in Italy, Bologna and Città del Vaticano, United Kingdom, Spain, and there is another one in Germany that we didn't study. But anyhow, they are in Europe in different and important institutions. So this was a long project, and I would like to mention David Buti, that was starting from his PhD, the PI of this project, and these are some publications. And to make a very long story short, I would like to bring the final results of all this. For all the codex, despite the provenance, so different type of specific culture in the Mesoamerican context, we have found one common characteristic, that all the color used for depicting the codex were coming from plants and were coming from flowers, and are specific type of pigment that were produced by molecules extracted by flowers together with a clay. The clay is giving stability, and the flower or the molecular coming from flower are giving the color. They could have not resist or be applied without the clay. And this is something that we know also from previous studies from Maya blue, but it's something new and completely more white for all these other type of tonalities, that is yellow, red, orange, and so on and so forth. And thanks to the close collaboration with the expert of pre-Columbian culture, with the expert of codex, we were able to realize and to tell the story about the use of these organic dyes from flower in this specific type of object. So the objects were used in the past in their culture to bring message to the population, to tell and to make them knowledge about the religious, about the organization of the society, so on and so forth. And they were used to be singed to the population. So they were not simply read, but read by singing. And in this population, the singing is also named speech of flower. So we think that combining the material science and the knowledge of the culture, we have realized how material and the selection of the material is specific for the meaning of the object. So all this is possible through an European infrastructure. It is possible because we are building the perfect place for an interdisciplinary and an attitude of co-creation that has to start from the beginning. It's possible because we have the capability of study different type of objects, a large number of objects. And if we would like to bring an information and a value from diagnostic method to a problem or a question related to heritage, we have to combine different methods. We have to combine a lot of information and a lot of data. And this brings me to the last slide, but to a very important and very engaging future we have behind, that is the building of a new platform. Is a platform dedicated not to a physical experiment, not to physical visit to archive, to see object, sample, and document, but is a digital platform. Is a digital platform that is seen as the future big space where all the data we are producing with the infrastructure, but also out of the infrastructure, are collected together in a fair way, so this data can be in the future reused because they are located, they are metadatated, they are interoperable. And also we would like to have in our dream, in this digital platform, all the tools that the researcher can use to pick up data, to compare data, to analyze and to work more deeply. And we really think that this will be a strong step forward in our interdisciplinary discipline that is heritage science. So really with the use, with the storage, with the co-creation around data, we will have a big step forward in the knowledge, and that therefore also the capacity to inform the public, to tell the story about the object, and to preserve them for the future generation. So I hope that the bilateral between Italy and Georgia, where our colleagues are creating a lot of data, will be part also of this endeavor of the creation of the digital platform for heritage science. So really thank you. And this is the end of my presentation with a photo of all the colleagues of our institute. I recall the fact that half of them are coming from humanities, mostly archaeology. Half of them are coming from what I can call a STEM, so science, technology, engineering, math. And so our mission is to work together with heritage-based projects that are basic projects or applied projects, but to bring innovation to cultural heritage field. Thank you.